not just in our own personal lives and what we're doing. That it teaches people that you don't know better, that you can't decide for yourself. It cripples and hobbles us by saying the law, or those who know better, or those who are in that, we called it weeks ago, the clerisy, those people in that academic class, that the power brokers or whatever, those people know what's better for you. Those people know better how you can live your life, or should live your life, and will live your life if they have anything to say about it. It creates such self-doubt in us. Not necessarily conservatives who tend to buck this sort of thing and get irritated at it, but as a whole, the American population is less confident in themselves in situations far-reaching because they have to doubt themselves because of all these laws.
The other thing that I think it does is it dehumanizes us, because it's not our responsibility, it's somebody else's. I don't have to help somebody call 911. I mean, this last summer I saw somebody getting beat up in the middle of the street on the way to work, and that was exactly the lady's response when I turned around and said, "Has anybody called 911?" And she just rolled her eyes at me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, come on, we've got to do something. This poor person is getting pummeled in the middle of the street.
I have another example, and I think Fishy will know it, because she was the one who I saw it from, and my parents were shocked and astonished. There's a article on the Blaze that had a video of a kid rampaging through a dollar store, knocking all of this stuff on the floor, just having the worst kind of a temper tantrum, throwing items at people, assaulting them, and not a single person. It took I don't know, 10 minutes at least for somebody to actually do anything about it. It was amazing that that nothing happened. But then at the same time, as I'm watching this, there's a reason for that. If you were to go in and try and rectify that situation physically, if you were to touch that kid and drag him out of the store, what kind of what are you liable for? I mean, what happens then? Could you be called in for being for inappropriately abusing a minor? The list is miles long of the things that could possibly go wrong with that situation. If you're trying to remove this kid who is obviously, there are no parents around, there's nothing, and is destroying the store. This is not something that would have happened, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's not something that would happen, but now it's entirely understandable to me why no one would just go in and, stop the kid from wrecking the place instead of, putting him in the corner. I don't know. It's ridiculous. They called the cops on him.
JD talking about this kid and no one being able to touch him or stop him reminded me of another story from the article. In 2007, at Jamaica High School in Queens, teachers started calling 911 to get police to help them deal with disorderly students. This didn't look good in annual metrics on school safety, so the school imposed a rule that teachers could no longer call 911 until first getting approval from the principal's office. When a student, a 9th grader, had a stroke, the teacher dutifully complied and refused to call 911 until she could locate someone to approve it. The child almost died from the delay of an hour in seeking help. So the teachers would get in trouble for trying to punish these students. They couldn't touch them. They couldn't do anything to stop them. So what they did is they started calling 911. That would hopefully scare the kids enough. The police would come, maybe scare them, maybe they could do something about it. And so they made a rule you can't call 911 anymore. So someone's having a stroke in class and they can't touch her, they can't call 911, they have to wait an hour to find the principal, page him, get him down there, whatever, before they can call 911 to save a student. It should be common sense. In that case, you can break the rule and call 911, but they're programmed not to think. You have to just follow the rules.
And that common sense that you just hit on is so important. Whenever we are dealing with a policy that the left has implemented, or some plan that they have, or some mindset that they're exercising, if we can phrase our objections to it using lots of phrases like common sense, appealing to people that hopefully there's plenty of it left in the country, I imagine so, I'm hoping so. But if we can put things in terms of common sense and really build that feeling of, wow, those leftists, they're crazy. That's not common sense at all. Why would you do that? We'll have an easier time opening people up to our ideas and our solutions, because they will feel affirmed by, well, yeah, of course you would call 911 regardless of what the policy said. Of course you do that to save a life. And you put things in terms of common sense, it will resonate with far more people who are not political, but they hear you talking common sense and the other side talking control.
Common sense only occurs when people have the choice to use it. You know, I always laugh. I mean, the more you micromanage all the actions of a populace, the less common sense you're going to have, and in fact, the more untrained they will be to make wise choices. You know, I always laugh at people who look at Christians and say Christians are controlling, Christians are this, you know, the God of the Old Testament, the God of the Bible is this, you know, overwhelming, terrible, controlling. Okay, let's take a look at that. Right there, you guys have heard this before, right there in the book of Genesis, right away, what does he do? He says, he puts us in the garden with all these trees, and he says, freely you may eat from any tree in the garden. He didn't micromanage us like what happened in New York City. He didn't say, you must eat from tree 8 in row H, branch 4, piece of fruit number 12. He said, freely you may eat from any tree in the garden, but that your choices may have consequence, may matter, that they may have purpose. I'll put 2 trees in the middle, one of great reward, one of great consequence. Notice there's no micromanagement there. Just here, you may freely make choices, and you can have great consequence or great reward. What he was doing was freeing us to do good. Okay? This is what is great when you have parents who put together a solid set of rules for their kids and say, okay, this will have consequences, but outside of this, have at it. Feel free. We have to give more choice to people. We have to unleash people. Government doesn't do that.
Sorry, I have another paragraph from the article I want to share. I know we said we wouldn't do any favorite list for the year or anything, but I think this is my favorite article of the year, so I've got something else. There's a paragraph towards the end that teaches us where we need to focus. Right now, we're focused on the wrong things. We're focused on, Obamacare is bad or global warming is not happening. Those might be true, but the way to win people over is this. This is what the paragraph says. Senseless bureaucracy is part of what spawned the Tea Party. Just get government off our backs. But when conservatives get to power, they don't seem to do much about it. That's because they have attacked the goals of regulation, say environmental, instead of the true villain, the mindless bureaucratic blob that leaves no room for people to use their common sense in daily decisions. I think we can make a lot of inroads in places if we attack that bureaucratic blob and saying we don't need all these regulations, we don't need all these overseers, we want to be able to make choices, let the free market work, let people innovate, and then that will begin to make ground, and then we can make the changes that need to be changed. Then people will be able to see both sides of an argument, and we'll be able to make a more educated decision. It
would make sense to, let people figure out what is workable for their neighborhoods, what they want to have in their area, the kind of businesses that they want to allow. Particularly, it makes no sense that you would have somebody in D.C. telling you that you can't frack in your neck of the woods when the fracking is good. It is absolutely insane to think that a couple people in cubicles in Washington, D.C. have the amount of control that they do on our daily lives, and that's something that people can relate to. They don't want to have somebody from the FDA tell them that they can't eat sprinkles, that their cookie dough might be, might possibly shockingly have some salmonella in it when they are tasting it when they're baking cookies. We don't need these people in DC to tell us stuff that we already know and stuff that we should have the sense to know. And we do have the sense to know, but for how long? Fishy's right there. She said in the chat that nobody hears us when we use terms like central planning. Of course not. And they don't, and they shouldn't, because central planning is like saying, private sector, or any of those sort of buzzwords that you hear us say a lot in the political class. We need to bring these things to terms that normal, everyday people care about, not just us political wonks.
Well, can we get more basic with them and simply ask, especially of young people, do you want the government to make other people live the way you want them to live? Nice and simple. You don't like having a micromanaging boss wherever you work, at a theater or wherever. Do you want the government to do that for you, though, the second your side wins? You don't want this person to make that much money. You don't want that person to be able to carry a gun. You don't want this person driving that kind of car or an SUV. You don't want that person. And you go on and on and on with the list. Young people especially have been conned into becoming control freaks through the hand of government. So rather than talking about central planning, and when we talk about that, we put it as a problem way off there in Washington. You can blame somebody else. Oh, yeah, we all hate that. No. What happens in Washington, you empowered with your vote. Do you want Washington to make others live like you? Do you want this pastor not to be able to say he disagrees with homosexuality? Do you want that? You see what I mean? I think we need to personalize it with people.
Absolutely. I think this is a good place to sort of talk about elitism. I think this might be a good area to delve into that resolution, because that's a lot of what we're talking about here, is the fact that these elitists in Washington decree what you can and cannot do. That's a huge thing, and people don't like the kind of elitism that DC is sort of exerting on us. Fishy, you wanted to jump in here?
Sorry. I didn't have my camera set up right. No, one of the things that a good resolution for us, in terms that kind of feeds into the one you're talking about, is everyone should be challenged this year in 2015. Make this the year that you learn to find that control element in every leftist policy, whatever it is. And Andy makes great points about this, and this is something that I learned, and I've studied so much Andy and Cori Payton, Party of Choice, that I could almost give a little bit of a presentation on it. I'm so impressed with everything they've ever done. You guys really have changed my way of thinking on so many things. But sending me into my brain and thinking about every political issue that I've ever talked about with anybody, and redefining it in my head and looking for that control element has made me much more eloquent on anything I'm talking about. It is such an easier thing to do, to find that control element, highlight it, show it to people, and then walk them through it. I don't need that list of talking points. You've talked about that so often, Andy, but it's so true. So I'm challenging everybody this year. Go find 10 issues, 5 issues, 2 issues, doesn't matter. And get in your mind, walk through it. Where is the control element? And then learn to use that language around choice versus control. Spend some time in that thought exercise so that you can articulate that better. And we will change the conversation in 2015 like nobody's business. Everyone should be doing that. Go through your head, find control, explain it, and get it down in your own head well enough to explain it, and then try it on everything else that you talk about. It is such a key. It opens up so many doors. We can't underline that enough. And while you're doing that, go to partyofchoice.com and learn how.
Nice plug. That's always good.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And back to the elitism thing.